Okay, this is the upper intake manifold that's actually pretty much out of the car, and this is the idle air control right here. I'm pointing to. Okay, and you can see it's disconnected. That's the blue on there. You can see the blue gasket. It disconnects from this. It's just a clip. Okay, that's all you got to do. And here is the throttle position sensor on the top. Okay, disconnect that. Just disconnect this. The throttle position sensor. It's just a clip. Alright. And it's a gray. If I see it right here someplace. It's right here. Okay. It's this. Okay. It goes on. It's the throttle position sensor. Okay. Now, over here, you have the air intake temperature sensor, or the IAT, intake air temperature sensor. Okay, I don't know if it's coming out good right there. Okay, disconnect that. And this black one back here is the manifold absolute pressure sensor. Okay, disconnect that. Now this manifold is actually out of the car. Okay, now the bolts that are there, there's 4 long ones in the back. These are 12mm size socket, and 3 short ones in the front. Now, if I'm making this too bright, if you need to fix the threads on the upper intake manifold, the size is, I use these. I don't use any helicoils because they're junk and they break, and they were installed in the car before and they didn't last. So it's M8 by 125, these are metric, by M12 by 175. And you can get these from McMaster.com. And the tap drill is a 10.5mm. So you're tapping for an M12-175. So these are the inserts themselves. And actually those are steel inserts, so they don't fall apart like the aluminum does. And these are just 3 short bolts, 4 long bolts. Okay, now these are torqued to 165 inch-pounds, so you need to have an inch-pounds torque wrench. That's 13 foot-pounds approximately. 13 foot-pounds, or if we use inch-pounds torque wrench, it's 165 inch-pounds. Disconnect this vacuum line here. Now, I always disconnect the battery. I don't know if you really need to do that, but I always do. Okay. Now, there's 2 hoses in the back on this, and right here. Okay. Now, if you can see that, yeah, there's that intake, that larger vacuum hose actually goes to your power brake booster. So if you disconnect that, you'll have a major air leak and your power brakes won't work. But it's not very difficult to do. This little hose here, that's connected to a nipple on the bottom. If you can see that, there's a little nipple there on the bottom shining a light on it, and that's this hose in the front. Pull that off, because if you pull this away from the manifold, up and out of the way, you'll break this little hose if you forget to take this off. And this goes down to, if you actually routes this down, it goes down, 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 and it actually goes to the EGR down here. Okay, sometimes you can have a break in this hose, and there's, your EGR valve will not be working correctly. Now, while I'm on the subject of this EGR, exhaust gas recirculation valve, this is the tube where it operates from, and it goes up to your intake. So this goes to that, and there's two 8mm bolts that go there, and this is your bracket, which actually sits this way. It's bolted here. This is for the throttle. 2 10mm bolts. That's the size of the head on the bulb. And the ones on the EGR tube are 8mm, 2 of those. Now, to take off this, these cables, you have to push this back all the way, and you can see there's 2 slots in here, and these are the ends of the cables, and you'll be able to slide them out of the slots if you turn this back all the way. That's about it for taking off this manifold, except I should point out that actually, if the car's from the factory, you can see back here, you can see that little bracket. You'll see that the intake manifold could be bolted to the bracket in the back, 2 bolts. Now, I never reinstalled these. These weren't reinstalled in the car from many years ago. They don't seem to be necessary, but they're difficult to take out. That's why people don't reinstall them. But you might need to take these 2 bolts out, and they support the upper intake manifold. But that's about it for taking this out. Well, except for obviously taking off the where it goes to the air cleaner, the tubing that goes to the air cleaner. So that's a very minor thing too. But that's what's involved in taking off the upper intake manifold. Now, when you take this off, obviously you can get at your spark plugs. You got 3 in the front. That's these 3. Okay, so you can get at the ones in the back, which are here. You can see them, so you can get to the ones in the back. 1, 2, 3. Now I want to point out what I need to do this for on a timing belt is there's going to be 2 bolts in the very back of the engine, and you really can't see them, but they're in this area, 1 and 2, right in that area, down a couple inches, and you need a 15 millimeter. Those are 15 millimeter socket size. One comes out, one gets loosened, so you can move the power steering bracket out of the way to remove this upper timing chain. I keep saying timing chain, it's a habit. Timing belt cover, and because the power steering bracket covers the timing belt cover, the upper cover, and you just can't remove it without swinging that out of the way. So the only way I can really get at these bolts, as far as I'm concerned, some people can, but most can't, is to take off this upper intake manifold. But this is also the procedure for getting at your back 3 spark plugs. So you can actually use this as a reference for that too. And that's about it for this part.